behind an emotion, there's an unmet need. So coming to your 2-year-old who is throwing a temper tantrum because you did not cut the bananas the right way when they told you how they wanted them cut, and you cut them exactly to how they said, but that apparently was not the right
That
way.
changed in the last 10 seconds. Yes.
Yes, exactly. It's not practical. You can't tell a 2-year-old, oh, and what unmet need do you have here? They're gonna stare at you like, what are you talking about, mom? Like, I just want the banana, and you gave me the purple plate when I wanted the blue plate, and the world is ending. So yes, in that moment, coming to them because they are back in our primitive brain. They're focused solely on the emotion.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of Mom Essentials. Meltdowns, big emotions, unwanted behaviors are something almost every parent deals with at some point. And maybe in your house, it doesn't feel occasional. Maybe it feels constant, like you're walking on eggshells, bracing for the next outburst, or wondering why the smallest things turn into the biggest reaction. Is it just a phase, or could there be something deeper going on? And what if what we labeled as bad behavior in our children is actually a dysregulated nervous system? And parents, what if the same thing's happening to us? Today, we're going to dive into the connection between regulation, stress, and the body. Because when our nervous systems are stuck in fight or flight mode, it impacts how we react, how our kids react, and honestly, how our homes feel. So to help me with my topic today, I am so excited to be joined by my guest, Dr. Katie Jancik, a native Minnesotan and owner of It Takes a Village Chiropractic, where she works with infants, children, and families seeking gentle, personalized chiropractic care. She holds the distinction of she holds the distinction of being one of the few integrative pediatric chiropractors in the country specializing in neurodevelopment support and family-centered care. Through her mobile practice, Dr. Katie brings care directly to parents' homes, creating a calm, convenient, and supportive experience for busy families. When she's not at work, Katie enjoys dancing and painting, but she has carved out some of her time today to be with us. So welcome, and thank you so much for joining me, Katie.
Thank you for having me on the show, Angie. I'm really excited.
I am too. I'm not sure I've actually interviewed a chiropractor before, or if I did, it's been a really long time. And I think that we hear so much about chiropractic care just, in the world in general, but there might be a lot of parents who are tuning in right now and kind of wondering like, okay, well, you said you do a couple different things, like you're very family focused and you're also a mobile chiropractor, which is something I think that's very unique. So let's kind of share a little bit more about your practice and what it means that you're focusing on the entire family.
Yeah, so I really wanted to focus on taking care of the whole family. So a lot of practices really emphasize pediatrics or family care in the respect that they see everybody and anybody. And I do as well. I take care of my patients. I always say I take care of, babies still in the womb, and then I take care of us as we get into later in life stages as well. And my focus, though, is truly taking care of the entire family. And where that comes in with what we're talking about today for the nervous system regulation. So, a lot of people don't know that in a typical household, so kids get their regulation and the cue from mom. So everybody says, "Oh, happy life, happy wife, happy life." When mom's not happy, nobody's happy. And that is really actually there's some truth to that. And it's not like putting all the blame on mom. Oh, the house is a mess because mom's a mess. No, that's not what we're trying to say. But, kids get their emotional cues from mom. And then typically mom gets her emotional cues from dad. So if we have this dysregulation at any point in that chain, then we can have hiccups, we can have mood swings, we can have just an overall chaotic house. And I saw this most recently with a baby who came in with just lots of issues, colic, just baby looked really grumpy. And I looked at mom and and the mom is just holding it in by a thread. And you could tell she just, she's just staring at me like, I'm here. I'm doing the things. She's barely surviving. And so what I focus on is not just survival, but I want families to thrive. And so I said, hey, mom, do you know baby's getting their cues from you? So you need to take care of you as well. And so that's kind of what I mean by a family focused practice. I really want to make sure that everybody in the family is feeling supported and getting the care that they need. Because again, it is, like gears in a machine. If one's not working, they all don't work. And so we need everything to be this cohesive. Let's be honest, a family is a machine. Like we're all progressing through life as a unit. And if something's not working, well, that can impact the entire family. And the reverse can be that as well. If kids are struggling a lot, that impacts mom and dad too, because they're stressed out because their kids stressed out, and it bleeds into other aspects of their lives.
Oh, Katie, you are like speaking my language right now because I'm over here furiously like writing notes of things that you're saying because there's so many similarities between what you do with your chiropractic care and kind of the foundational pieces of it and what we do at the Parent Toolbox. Because I always say that I work directly with the parents, not that I don't want it, it's going to impact the whole family. But one of the reasons I love working directly with the parents is because honestly, we have a lot more work than our kids do to kind of change our behaviors. And we've been hardwired for so long that it's going to take us some time and practice and grace in order to change those behaviors that we want our kids to see. And also mimic. So I always say my whole mission with what I'm doing is to remove that do as I say, not as I do, and really have it do as I say, do as I do. But I also completely related with that mom who came in with a baby where you're like, you could just tell she was hanging on by a thread, like she was about to lose it. And yes, that is so common. As moms, we wear so many hats and we have like 47 tabs open in our brain all of the time, thinking that we need to be the one in control of the machine, maintenance the machine, program the machine, do all of these things to make it work. And so I love your approach at really looking at it as a whole family versus just, oh, mom just needs to get the care, or mom doesn't need the care because she can just keep going and chugging along and we're just going to look at the family. Gosh, so many good things that I'm so excited for this conversation with. So some people might be listening though and be like, okay, well, wait a minute. How we're talking about dysregulation and kind of the behaviors that come from it. How in the world is chiropractic care going to help with any of that?
Okay, perfect question, Angie. I really like this one because I get this a lot of how does chiropractic care help with emotional regulation or dysregulation? So, dysregulation is essentially a body not calm, not at ease. When we think about our emotions, you float through a bunch of emotions in a day. Your bus is late, your kids are causing issues. You're able to fluctuate between those emotions quickly and realize, hey, this is a temporary state. Oh, I'm stressed out about presenting. And once I'm done with the meeting, it's not a big deal. It was then, that's done and over with. However, kids are not able to fluctuate between these states as quickly. And so by getting adjusted, it helps balance the nervous system and bring these kids into a calmer state so that they are able to then regulate their emotions better and utilize tools that I'm sure you work with your toolbox that is in our toolbox to help those kids regulate the emotions and bring them out of, we've all heard the fight or flight state. It brings them into more of a parasympathetic state, which is the rest and digest. And we want both sides of the nervous system to work. We want a fight or flight state. If your kid is about to be hit by a car, you want them to have that quick react, oh, move out of the way. However, we don't want them to constantly stay in this state of hyper awareness, hyper being stressed out. And so chiropractic helps bring their nervous system back into more of a parasympathetic state, a calm state, which is where we want them to stay predominantly. And then, yes, if there is a emergency situation or a true fight or flight situation. That child can go into that state. Oh, situation is done. Now I can come back and be calm. They're not in that constant agitated state. And I'm sure we've seen that with kids. You can tell when there is a kid who is just overly sensitive and in that stressed out stage. You visibly can see it.
Yeah. Yeah, gosh, again, so many good points because you're really helping the body communicate all the different pieces together so that, just like in a family, when we have miscommunication, there's going to be more stressors, there's going to be fights, there's going to be dysregulation happening. Because I always say, too, emotions, which there's no bad emotion, we all have all of the emotions at one point or the other, it's just how we handle them, but they're very much like dominoes, kind of what you were referring to as well, of like, if mom's not happy, nobody's happy. It's because it has that effect on our family that we live with. One person's mood is going to affect the other. And I'm so glad that you brought up that fight or flight mode for a couple different reasons. Because yes, we are just biologically have that in us, which was great in the caveman days, right? Like we had to run away from animals that were going to kill us. Don't have to necessarily worry about that in everyday life now. But it is something that is there to help us in those situations. As you mentioned, if our kids are in harm or something's going to happen, that they can switch into that and they can get out of the situation. What I find a lot when talking to moms, and maybe you've had this experience too, which it kind of sounds like from your first story, is that I see a lot of moms living in this fight or flight mode and not realizing that they've stayed there for so long. And they just think, oh, this is just what being a mom is. These are all the messages that I'm getting from outside sources of, if you're a mom, you're going to be stressed, you're going to be tired, your kids are going to give you a hard time. And I think we stay stuck in this fight or flight until we realize, like, oh my gosh, I didn't have to live at that level for so long. Like there is a different way. So can you share a little bit more about, obviously we have chiropractic care, but is there any other suggestions that you give to moms who are maybe in this fight or flight to help them come back to what I like to call their sweet spot of emotions, where they're not feeling like they have those 47 tabs open all the time?
Yes. So many different things that you can do. So obviously, big proponent chiropractic, as we mentioned. I mean, having a therapist to be able to talk to and work things out with. I'm really a big proponent of it takes a village. That is the name of my business. And the same way I think it takes a village to raise a child, I think it takes a village to build health. And I know chiropractic is amazing, but it's not the end all be all. There's other components to health that we can get. So therapy is one, but even everybody talks about meditation. I have ADHD. If you tell me to sit quietly and not think of anything, I would rather gouge my eyes out. I can't sit still. I can't just sit there in a calm, meditative state. That's not happening. But what I say is taking time to just reset your brain, whatever that means. For me, it is taking my morning meditation calming breaths. So there's a couple different breaths that you can do. Breath work is super important. And the main one that I like to always highlight is diaphragmatic breath. Innately, our bodies know to breathe with the diaphragm. And the diaphragm acts like a giant umbrella. It sits under your rib cage. And that is the main tool or main thing that helps us breathe. However, as we start to get older, we start to breathe more in our chest of this panicked, tight breaths.
Yeah.
So, really focusing on even just a belly breath, a diaphragmatic breath. There's thousands of YouTube videos. Look it up. It'll help you out. I won't take too much time, but I always say dragon breaths for me are really big. So just working on different breath work. Um, Box breathing, the breathe in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, and hold for 4 is another one. So doing whatever you can to set your morning up successfully with breath and making sure you're calm. Now, actuality, you have your alarm going off, you have your kids screaming in the other room for breakfast, you're 5 minutes late, you now have a hectic morning. It's what can you do during the day to still maintain that calm? There's a lot of research on polyvagal theory. So the vagus nerve goes from the brainstem down to the diaphragm and back up. So you can actually take like 3 to 4 fingers and tapping on your sternum, which is your chest bone in the center, and just tapping there. That helps to regulate and calm the body down. So doing that while taking a couple deep breaths is really good. If your kid isn't in a meltdown, having them do that to themselves as well. Some kids want to be touched when they're angry. Other kids, you try to touch them, you're going to get smacked real fast.
Yeah.
So these are just a couple things that I always will bring up. I myself have ADHD, so my tactile, for me, it's tactile senses. I like a weighted blanket. I like compression. So things that I do are also things that I recommend for kids as well. And kids like, a pillow fight can actually be really good for you and your kids on helping just bring the body into a calmer state. I know that sounds silly, but
No.
it actually is really good of just you're being able to use a lot of like force and smacking pillows and having fun, but it's also the brain is getting a calming sensation as well with the tactile sense.
Yeah. I think those are all really, really great ideas because we talk about, again, at the Parent Toolbox about all sorts of different coping skills. And, just because a coping skill works well for me, needing to come down into, again, my sweet spot of emotions, doesn't mean that it's going to work for you and vice versa. So I love that you gave even just like different opportunities of breathing because especially when we're working with our kids, me doing my breathing exercise might not be the same as works for my daughter, for example. And I talk about that quite a bit as, even having twins, I know that I have to use different tools and resources for my daughter than I have to use for my son, even if I want to get the same outcome because they're two different people, right? And what I do doesn't always work for them and vice versa. And I love that you said about the meditation thing because, again, I think when we think of calm, we get this idyllic picture in our head that we're going to be on a beach in a yoga pose, just looking out into the sunset, and that is going to make all of our worries go away. That is not practical for a lot of people. And so we've talked a lot on this podcast with other guests too of sitting down for 20 minutes because I've tried to do that too does not work. I think I made it 30 seconds and I was like, nope, gotta go do something else. And I think it is important to remember, like, you don't have to jump in all the way with those types of things. Like, take like 3 seconds and see if you can just sit in silence for 3 seconds. And then maybe the next day you can sit in silence for 10 seconds and kind of build on there. Just because I think we live in this like all or nothing type of environment where it's like, oh, I'm going to start meditating, so I need to block off 4 hours for this part of my day so that I can be in full meditation, when that's just not practical or maybe enjoyable for people. Quick story, I recently went to a place here local in Minnesota to Minneapolis. It's called Watershed. I don't know if you've heard of it, Katie,
I
but
haven't.
they have a bathhouse. And so a friend of mine had given me a gift card for a birthday, and I was like, I'm finally going to use it. And I was like, I have no idea what I'm getting myself into. But down there, they have a cold plunge, they have like a warm pool or bath, they call it. They have a steam room, a sauna, and then a big meditation area. And I was like, how am I going to shut my brain off for 2.5 hours? Like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. I was like, on my way there, one of my top strengths is like strategy or being strategic. And so I'm like, okay, how can I utilize this time as much as I can? And how can I plan stuff for my business and all of these things? And I will tell you, I was pleasantly surprised that I was able to turn my brain off and I was able to sit in the moment. But again, I don't have 2.5 hours every week to go to a bathhouse and do that. So I think just practicing little by little when you can. The other thing that I wanted to comment on that as well is and maybe you have more thoughts on this too, Katie. But when we are in the midst of it, when our kids are having those big meltdowns, or we feel like we're yelling constantly in the morning, utilizing these different calm down tools in the moment is not always going to be the most helpful unless we practice them outside of that dysregulation. And that has happened with my kids too, where I will try do breathing. And I know I've shared this story before in the podcast, but my daughter was upset with me one day. I don't remember why. And we were in the bathroom and I started doing a breathing exercise because sometimes our kids will model the type of coping skills that we're doing. And she just looked at me and goes, I know what you're doing. And I said, what are you talking about? Like, I'm just taking some deep breaths. And she's like, I don't want to breathe right now. And I was like, okay, that's perfectly fine. Like, this is helping me calm down, but I can't make them calm down in the same sense. So I think that's just kind of what I wanted to get across with the coping. I love all of your ideas, and I want to make it very apparent to our listeners that we also must practice those outside of those dysregulated times so that it becomes more second nature to us.
Yes, I definitely agree with what you say. You need to practice it. And I even think back to my childhood. My parents were told, oh, count to 10 as you breathe. I can tell you where to shove that count to 10, and it's not a pleasant place. Because it was in the moment, the kid is so
Yeah.
anxious and so upset. And it was like they, most of the time, if and I'm not sure if you've ever heard of this, but if you think of any emotion or anger, let's just take anger. There's the anger iceberg. So you see the tip emotion of anger, but below the surface is all these other things. So typically behind an emotion, there's an unmet need. So coming to your 2-year-old who is throwing a temper tantrum because you did not cut the bananas the right way when they told you how they wanted them cut, and you cut them exactly to how they said, but that apparently was not the right
That
way.
changed in the last 10 seconds. Yes.
Yes, exactly. It's not practical. You can't tell a 2-year-old, oh, and what unmet need do you have here? They're gonna stare at you like, what are you talking about, mom? Like, I just want the banana, and you gave me the purple plate when I wanted the blue plate, and the world is ending. So yes, in that moment, coming to them because they are back in our primitive brain. They're focused solely on the emotion and their prefrontal cortex, which is where we can regulate our emotions. Fun fact, not fully developed until 25. So even your, 18-year-olds who are off in the world experiencing college do not have this fully mastered. And I would argue that some adults still don't have it fully mastered.
I'm just thinking of all the dumb stuff that I did in college that now I can be like, well, my frontal lobe was not completely, but still, I made
Developed.
really stupid
Yeah.
decisions in college and it makes sense.
Yes. And so expecting a child to be able to logically think and especially in an agitated state, it, it's insanity, doing the same thing again and again, expecting a different outcome. Well, I'm sure you've tried reasoning with your kid that the blue plate is in the dishwasher and it's dirty, and you better, stop that dishwasher mid-cycle to pull that plate out, or the world is ending. And that's where we want to try to get our kids into an overall calmer state,
Yeah.
because the calmer that they begin, the lower the iceberg is throughout the day, it'll slowly creep up a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. And yeah, who knows? It might peak and they might have a outburst that day. It might be a great day where it's a chill day and nothing bad happened, and you go to bed like, did that just happen? Have we turned a tide? Is this going to be my life? Thank you. I've been waiting for this.
Yeah.
And then tomorrow it goes back. So that's where talking about that regulation, trying to keep it, keep them as, I shouldn't, don't even want to say calm, just in an adaptable state.
Yeah.
Our bodies are meant to adapt.
Yeah.
We have survived all these years because we did adapt from apes, to now. I mean,
Yeah.
so being an adaptable state, I should put it like that.
Yeah. No, I think that's such a good point that you brought up that we as adults, because again, we're running so fast and we have so many things, especially moms, on our plate at all times, that we have this expectation that our kids are going to be where we're at when it comes to flexibility and adaptability and being okay with the orange plate instead of the green plate or whatever colors you used. We have this expectation, and because I feel like a lot of women are just kind of always 5 steps ahead, right? Um,
Mhm.
like we're always thinking about the next thing and kind of preparing and thinking ahead, and so we have this expectation of like it's not a big deal, like just get over it type of thing. But to our kids in that moment, that is a big deal to them because they don't have to worry about work or bills or cleaning the house when they're 4 years old. Their biggest issue is that you cut the banana the wrong way. Now I'm not saying it's okay to let your children throw things across the room or have like the biggest tantrum because the banana was cut one way instead of the other. But it is a good reminder to us that yes, they are not developmentally where we are at as adults. So we have this high expectation of them, and sometimes we need to take a step back and really become aware of like what is happening in this situation. I love that you brought up anger because that is one of my favorite emotions to talk about because I think it gets such a bad reputation. We grew up hearing things like, don't be angry, like it's not a big deal. It's like everyone gets angry once in a while. We are human. Like it is not a bad emotion. It's just an emotion. We just need to figure out how are we going to deal with that emotion? How are we going to respond to it? And can we be proactive with our responses versus reactive where we spiral all of a sudden and then those big outbursts? So even like we were saying, like pillow fights, I tell people like encourage your kids to play the drums on the couch or stomp on the floor or push against a wall. Like it's the emotion that needs to get out, and we can do it in healthy, safe ways versus it always erupting into this one space. And I love how you kind of were like, saying the kids are not developmentally there. They're not going to understand the logical part that we're trying to tell them because it's just not part of their brain. And when I work with parents, I talk about 5 different check-in points that we can do in our body so we can start understanding when these emotions are coming up so we can be more proactive, again, to get back to our sweet spot. But I always say you're not going to go to your kids and say, can you tell me where, the body sensations are happening right now? And then share a little bit with me about the body movements. But if we have a better understanding of it as an adult, we can say things on their level of, can you point to where you're feeling this in your body? Like, do you feel like you need to move right now or do you feel like laying down? Like, we can guide them with those questions so that we can better understand it. And we can also give them those tools so they can still stay in tune with their body versus being told it's not a big deal. And then they think, oh, so this feeling is wrong and I don't know how to deal with it. So I'm just going to try shove it down. And then, 30 years later, they're in therapy trying to uncover how to deal with their emotions. So I love everything. And it's in the other last thing that I wanted to say about that is the adaptability part too. Like that can be really, really hard for kids. It is also an executive functioning skill, which we all have, that children do not develop right away. Like that does not happen right away. So again, we need to have understanding and grace and awareness for those situations so that we can have better communication and interactions with our kids so that everyone doesn't feel like they're erupting all of the time. So I think that's great, Katie. Okay, so I know we've talked about a lot of different things on this podcast. I think that this was a great reminder of just simple tools that we can use to help, that dysregulation. You talked about breathing. We talked about, just pillow fights and playing the drums on the couch. I want to kind of circle back into how you see utilizing these things at home, because even though you're a mobile chiropractor, so you can go into people's homes, which can be such a huge lifesaver for families, especially those moms who are hanging on by a thread. We know that you're not going to be there every single day though. So in between, we can be using these, regulation techniques and calming techniques. We can pair that with chiropractic care. Can you share just a little bit more about how you see those fluidly working together for families?
Yeah. So, like I said, um, doing those different things to try to regulate the nervous system and get them into a more calm state. So, when mom is calm, dad, I want to stop using the word calm.
I love the word calm. My whole
Calm.
calm
Okay.
approach. So
Okay.
you're
Okay.
perfectly
Because
fine with
calm,
using
well, to
calm.
me, I think calm is so impractical.
Mhm.
When I think of my day, and I'll be honest, I'm not a mom. I have like 15 years, over 15 years of working with kids, either as a chiropractor, nanny, daycare. You mention it, I've pretty much seen it.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm not calm all the time. I'm usually running around like most moms, like a chicken with my head cut off. So I feel like calm, I don't want it to be this unattainable state, similar to the meditation. I don't want parents to think that, yes, oh, Dr. Katie is talking about being calm. She's got her, poop in a group and she's all great. And, like she's got it all together. No, I don't. And so co-regulation is kind of the key thing. And this can look at like, you know, doing gratitude, talking about what you're grateful for at the dinner table. That helps bring people into a different state of mind, a different reactive state. It's, oh, instead of saying, how was your day today? Tell me your favorite, the highlight of the day. Tell me the highlight of the day. And if the highlight of the day wasn't something good, that is okay too. Or the, big point of the day.
Yeah.
It's being able to understand that, talk about it, and then, okay, what is something that you're grateful for then? I'll do that with my sister. We'll be on a call and I will be having a crappy day. And it's being able to, she's like, okay, now tell me one good thing. Or she'll have a rough day.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, tell me what was one good thing? And honestly, it might be, hey, I got a piece of chocolate from my massage therapist today. And so that was the highlight of my day was this piece of
Yeah.
chocolate. Like, or I got a really good hug, little things like that. And then working with, some of those tools that I said of the breathing, the tactile senses. So a lot of people do really well with hugs. Like that is a huge, so we know that hugging for, I think it's I can't remember, 30 or 60 seconds starts the release of oxytocin, which is the happy, makes us feel happy. So, if you're a family member who loves hugs, give your kid a hug and snuggle with them, for a minute. That can bring down the mood, like just bring everything into such a calm state. I call them tight squeezes when kids are feeling a lot of emotions.
Mm,
Do you need a tight squeeze? And it's different than a hug. A hug is this, oh, I love you. Let me give you a hug. A tight squeeze is like, hey, I just need this quick pressure. Like, oh, let's give it a tight squeeze. And usually what we'll do is, take a deep breath and like blow it out and be like, oh, if we're angry or something. And it's just this way to get them into a calm state. Rhythmic movements is another huge one. So, people on the spectrum, a lot of them will have tics or they'll have like a repetitive movement that they do. Our brains are innately intelligent. So the body knows that rocking motion is a calming thing. Why do we rock babies?
mm,
Because our parents did it, because something told us this rocking motion, this repetitive motion is a calming thing. So, working on a repetitive motion every day for your kids, whether that be rocking them, whether that be, like you said, playing drums on the couch. There's all these additional tools that you can do. I will also say, diet is a huge thing as well. It is hard to be super mom and make sure they're eating all of the fruits and veggies. And I'm not here to say, hey, moms, you're not doing enough, because
yeah.
God knows moms are doing enough. But where you can get healthier snacks, trying to reduce sugar intake, things of that nature, that also helps balance the body overall as well. And
Yeah.
I get it. You're talking to the gal who will half the time eat her breakfast as like a bar on the go in the car, shoving it in my mouth as I'm running out my door.
Yeah.
Not the ideal way we want to eat. We want to eat in a calm state, not a on the go state.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that could be a whole nother podcast with like diet, and we've talked to some dietitians on this podcast
yeah.
before too, but it is challenging. But I want to say thank you, Katie, for coming on and joining me and sharing all of this amazing wisdom. Again, I love how you shared, chiropractic care is just one piece of the puzzle, and we have to kind of surround ourselves with all those different opportunities to really help ourselves, like help us and our families thrive, not just survive. And be hanging on by a thread, which sometimes that's what we feel like moms during the day, is that, we're just hanging on, and maybe you did grab your breakfast and run out the door this morning, and you ate in the car and you spilt coffee on your shirt. Those are going to be some days that you have, but we can always try make little steps forward to help create a more calm environment with things like chiropractic care and, using different resources and tools. And so again, thank you so much, Katie. I know that our listeners can go to the show notes. They can find you, especially those who are local to Minnesota, give you a try, and have more conversations with you about how you can help them and their family really regulate their nervous system. So listeners, again, head to the show notes, get connected with Katie, and of course, stick around for the Essential Minute coming up next, and we will see you next time on Mom Essentials. Hey, thanks for sticking around for this Essential Minute. So I hope you enjoyed that incredible conversation with Dr. Katie about nervous system regulation, about how it can really keep many of us stuck in our fight or flight mode without even realizing it, and how that at the end of the day trickles down to our kids and the overall energy of our home. So that's exactly why I want to tell you more about doTERRA's blend, Adaptiv. It is seriously one of my favorite oils they've ever created. Adaptiv is their calming blend, and it was literally designed to help your body adapt to stressful situations, which obviously you can feel is probably the perfect match for today's conversation. So it's a combination of oils like wild orange, lavender, copaiba, spearmint, and a few other ones in there. And together they create this grounding, soothing effect that can help take the edge off when things start feel a little chaotic. So here are a few ways that you can use it. First, this comes in a bottle and also a roller. So you can use the bottle to add a few drops into your diffuser during your morning routine, or even at the dinner table to really set that calmer tone for everyone. Secondly, you can either create your own or grab up the roller and apply it to your wrist in the back of your neck. And this will really help when you feel that fight or flight creeping in. It's small enough to keep in your purse or car, so you can always have it with you no matter where this starts happening. And third, and this is probably one of my favorite, is just put a few drops into your palm, rub them together, cup your hands over your nose, and take a couple 3 deep belly breaths. Now, it perfectly pairs with the breathing exercise that Dr. Katie, or whichever one you prefer to use, it can help out so much. Now, if you want to add this to your parenting toolbox, and believe me, you do, head to the show notes to grab the link. Happy oiling! Thanks for listening to this episode of Mom Essentials. If you're looking for simple ways to bring more communication, connection, and calm into your home, head to theparenttoolbox.info and check out the Calm Family Planner. And as a special thanks for being a listener, you can take $5 off with the code ESSENTIALS. That's code ESSENTIALS. Want more tips in between episodes? Follow us on Instagram at theparenttoolbox. See you next time.